Growing up, I was a good little boy. I knew not to do bad stuff to other people, like harm them in any sort of way. But when it came to games, more specifically GTA games, anything went because I knew it was all fictitious. But despite this, there was one particular mission in San Andreas that my kid self could not or would not complete, that being the introductory mission to Jizzy. Since the final objective in it is to kill a priest, and I thought that was crossing the line. That and my kid self thinking that he was trying to help the hoe, but in reality he's just having sex with her. Sonic Unleashed has a very bizarre design choice, which is the homing attack button being the same as the boost button, and that's dumb for two reasons, the first of which being that you could virtually never use the little dash that Sonic can do to give you like a bit of extra distance, and two is because it could lead to incidents like this where you're trying to homing attack enemies but end up boosting yourself off of a cliff to a pitfall to your death. Thankfully, this was fixed in future games, so Sonic Team did realize their mistake, but yet I still wonder why it's even like this to begin with. The previous installments didn't have it like this, so why change it? Generally speaking, we all think of Duke Nukem as a strictly 90s character, since most of his major releases came out in that time. But then you get to 2002's Duke Nukem Manhattan Project, and well, it just feels off at some point. The references, I should say, because it genuinely feels odd to hear Duke make a crack about the bankruptcy of Enron or reference Max Payne. I mean, listen to these voice clips, they really do sound weird coming out of him.
Time to deliver Max Payne on the A train. Now where'd I put that subway token? Or if it's in his Glock rig, you're going down faster than Enron. Let's rock.
So in Banjo-Kazooie, at the end of the game, there was this whole thing about how you could find extra secrets that you could then use in the sequel. An ambitious idea called Stop and Swap, but unfortunately due to the console restrictions of the N64, it didn't work. Like at all. But since they were still in the game, many gamers thought, what if it worked? What would he would have gotten? Cut to the Xbox 360 releases of the games, and well, they're fixed now, you could do them. But with these releases, the rewards were changed to gamer pictures. So I'm just sitting here wondering what would have been the original rewards. I mean, would they have been extra jiggies? Would they have been more costumes? Or possibly even extra moves? I guess we'll never know. In Call of Duty Zombies' Der Riese, there was introduced a neat little Easter egg, which if you were to go prone into a Perca-Cola machine, you would get a bonus 25 points, which I'm pretty sure is supposed to be a joke of you finding like loose change down there, which is a pretty neat Easter egg, all things considered. But one thing that always bugged me about getting the money was that it would never pop up as 25 points, it was always just round up to 30, but still act like being 25 points. So if you had like exactly 1,000 and tried to buy a door for 1,000, you wouldn't be able to, because technically you would have only 995 points. And that little detail just always bugged me. Luckily, in the re-release for Black Ops, they did fix this. I know I'm not alone when I say I really hate it when you do something really hard in a game on like your first try, but then end up choking it right before you complete it. But then something inside you like gives way and you just can't do it again. Every single future attempt at that point is just not as good as your first. And it might just take coming back to the game on a whole new day just to have another good chance at doing it again. And maybe, just maybe, finally completing what you were trying to do. Why does everyone always rag on the video quality of the Sega CD? I mean, I get it, it doesn't look the best, but I mean, to a kid in 1993, this probably would have blew their socks off. I mean, think of the most advanced 16-bit game that was out at the time, and then compare it to this. I mean, being able to see real cartoons or real movie clips be played on your video game console, that would have been unheard of. And like something we wouldn't see again until like the mid-2000s. The first Dead Rising game is infamous for being quite a hard game, and one of those major sticking points for that is the survivor's AI. And that's just because they're, well, complete idiots. They never follow you, they, go the longest way around, and worst of all, they always seem to just go straight for zombie hordes for no reason at all. And you always gotta bail them out of trouble before they die. And you gotta wonder if Capcom made them this dumb on purpose, or by accident. Like, did they not know how to properly program survivors? Alright, here's something that I, and maybe many other people, never understood about Sonic 2. In this game, we are introduced to Sonic's new sidekick, Tails. A fox who has two tails and is able to use them like a rotor to keep up with Sonic as well as fly. Because when he goes fast, he does the rotor thing, and when you get far away from him or he dies, he always flies back in. So why is it when you actually choose to play as him, he can't fly? At all. It's just such a bizarre design choice. It's like, when it's an AI, he can do whatever he wants, but once you start playing as him, the main thing he was made for, you can't do. So, the GTA 6 trailer finally released after literally 10 years of anticipation. And I guess to put my take on it, it does look interesting. It looks like that we're scaling back from GTA 5's over-the-top bank heist to more street-level stuff. But that's not really what I want to talk about with this random gaming thought. I just want to point out how funny it is that despite only being out for a few days, this trailer has managed to accumulate more views than the GTA 5 trailer. A trailer that, mind you, was posted all the way back in 2011. I mean, there's just something really impressive about that. Well, let's just hope that the hype is all worth it and Rockstar delivers us a great game. Remember when zombies invaded the Black Ops 3 and Black Ops 4 campaigns, and just how out of place they felt? Black Ops 3's campaign is already considered infamous for being so shitty. It's just putting zombies in there doesn't help its case. It almost feels like them grasping at something from a more popular game mode and trying to inject life into the campaign. And then it happens again in Black Ops 4, even more forced it seems, with you having to fight against zombies and a Blight Father. But having said all that, for as shitty as those two examples are, I will say the third time they did this in Cold War, it was actually a pretty cool moment. Growing up in the 2000s, I had a Game Boy Advance, and through this system I was able to play one of the best Mario games of all time, Super Mario World. Fast forward to today when I finally got my hands on a Super Nintendo and an original copy of the game, and well, going from the Game Boy version to this version just feels weird. Mario no longer says "let's-a go" when you start a level.
Let's go!
Luigi is literally just a palette swap of Mario instead of his own sprite. Getting hit completely shrinks you instead of just doing one level of damage. And some of the overworld markers are just off. I mean, I get that the GBA version is the more cleaned up version, but I do miss those enhancements. There's something funny about the duality of Superman having one of the worst video games of all time, but then Batman has one of the best. You go from Superman not being able to fly freely, instead he has to go through rings, having ungodly awful combat, and not even being able to use his powers properly. You can never just use them, they're only available in certain levels. And then on top of that, you don't even immediately get them, you actually have to find them within the level to use them. To Batman being able to go wherever he wants, while gliding even. Plus, he has one of the best combat systems ever in a game. And then on top of that, you're able to use just about all of his gadgets, all of which are readily available to be used. Now if only Superman can get a great game to even out the odds here. When I was a kid playing Super Mario 64, I stumbled upon the glitch in the middle part of the staircase. You know, the one where you're able to ledge grab yourself up it. And I thought, oh wow, I just found something that probably no one else has ever found before. And probably never will found. That's kinda cool. And I guess that just shows how small my child's view of the world was. since obviously many other people have probably found that glitch as well. And today it's like the most basic speedrunning tactic that you could do in Super Mario 64, so everyone knows of it now. When it comes to the N64 nowadays, one of the major sticking points for the system is that the graphics aged horribly, and one game that gets pointed out a lot is GoldenEye. And I mean, I can't really blame them. Look at these character models, and especially their faces. But one thing about these models that somehow always avoided ridicule was their crouching animation. Because, I mean, just look at this. He's slipping, sliding all across the floor. It just looks so dumb. My only guess is that this flew under the radar because it only happens in multiplayer where you could see it. And I doubt that many people were crouching in a game like this. The Star Wars Battlefront series puts you into the shoes of the average soldier during some of the biggest fights of the movies, and you're even allowed to play as both factions within each battle. And there are two neat things that the first game in particular does to sell this idea. The first of which are the loading screens, where it first zooms into what part of the galaxy you're on, then it shows you what planet you're on, then it zooms into exactly where the battle is taking place on that planet. And the second of which I really love, is that they just straight up use movie footage. It's a really cool segue, and it really does make you feel like you're fighting alongside the main characters. In the beginning of Paper Mario 2, Peach is once again kidnapped. But this time it's not by Bowser, it's actually from a new mysterious group known as the X-Nauts. And because of this, you actually have no clue where she is, she doesn't have any clue where she is throughout the entire game. Until very late in the game, you figure out that their base is actually located on the moon. And one little neat thing from the beginning of the game, if you replay it, is that there is actually a neat little hint towards this. That being, in the first Peach interlude, you get a few shots from a security camera, and one of the shots is this. Yep, for a split second you actually see the moon's surface and all the stars, and it's quick and you can miss it the first time you play, but if you catch it, then you kind of know where she is. So yeah, it's a pretty cool blink and you miss it sort of hint that they put in there. So you know in Minecraft, when you go into structures like a stronghold or whatever, and you find the chests, and you try to take as much of the loot as you can because there's good stuff in there, like a golden apple or diamonds or whatever. But then I have to question, am I the only one while doing this that also takes the chest as well? I feel like most people don't because it's just a chest. You can just go get some wood and create a bunch of them. But then to me, it's like there's just a perfectly good chest that you're just leaving there, so you might as well take it. You know, use the wood on something else more important. Plus, it's like an extra bonus piece of loot. How did people find out and then I guess figure out how to do the adventure Easter egg on Atari? Like, I know nowadays people can just go into games as files to find stuff like that, but back then, not so very much. Like, I mean, look at these steps that you have to do to get this to unlock. And it's just like, either somebody accidentally did all these in order, or by word of mouth, the person who put the Easter egg into the game told people and let it spread. I guess we'll just never know the true answer. In the arcade game Galaga, you can do a specific set of events to get a double ship, which allows you to get double the firepower. You know, let the tractor beam take your ship and then you destroy it when it gets close to you. And it's like considered a classic thing to do in this game, but I honestly never believed in it. I mean, again, I get it, it's double the firepower, but it's also double the size, meaning you're twice as big, and you're probably more likely to get hit this way. And not to mention the simple fact that by doing this, you're wasting a perfectly good life. And also that you could mess it up and end up destroying the ship and not even getting this. So yeah, there's too many negatives for me to do this strategy. When playing older games, there's a rule that I try to follow to the best of my ability. That being trying to not look up anything on the internet for help. Because if people back then were able to beat it without the internet's help, then I should be too. And if I really do need help, I feel like the only true way to get help would be either to look up the game's manual or a magazine. But in the end, there are definitely times where I just say screw it and look up the information, like Mega Man 3. Because screw relearning a whole new set of weaknesses for old Robot Masters. I have quite the fast trigger finger, and whenever playing shooting games I love to get semi-auto weapons and just let loose. But in just about every game there always seems to be some sort of limiting inhibitor that doesn't allow me to go as fast as I'm actually hitting the trigger. And so far, there's only one game that I could look towards that doesn't have this issue, where I could just shoot as fast as I want and the game will keep up with me. That being the first Left 4 Dead game when you get dual pistols. I mean, just watch this. It was a really cool concept to connect all the 3D era GTA games. You know, seeing characters more than once and then seeing the events that led to them going to where they ended up. You know, you could literally follow a character from their beginning in one game to their middle in another to their end in another. But with this concept, I always found it funny that the first game that was released, GTA 3, was the last in the timeline. Then the last game to be released was the first in the timeline. It's just funny how they kind of worked backwards with all that. Alright, so you know the opening for GoldenEye, where James Bond comes out and does the iconic gun barrel sequence? Well, as a kid, I never really understood what was happening here, since I never saw any of the movies. So through not knowing what it was, I tried to make sense of what was actually there. And with that, I ended up concluding that what this was a face. Like, the giant hole is the eye, the mouth is at the bottom, and then to the right is like a little nose. I mean, I'm not the only one who sees that, right? But regardless, I guess that my child self thought, okay, this evil-looking face is trying to kill James Bond, but he kills him first, and that's what happened. Makes sense to me. So I decided to go back and play a series that I haven't played in a long time, the Assassin's Creed series. And it's not like I forgot the general gist of these games, like the fact that you have to stick to the shadows to assassinate people and climb all around. It's just, it feels like that I'm playing with a major handicap or possibly even like a hard mode after playing a completely different series, where you also do a lot of sneaking around and climbing, that being the Batman Arkham games. And well, it just really sucks going from the freedom of mobility with the gliding and especially the grapple gun to just with your hands in Assassin's Creed. It definitely feels like a major downgrade.